Alrighty, everybody. We are back, ready for action here at the Foul Ball Podcast. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate being here, and thank you for listening in because the state of the USA is back and ready for more. And really, the goal behind this, right, is to present information to you of stuff that's going on in the world around us, right? Because every single day, literally pretty much every single hour, there's something going on, right? And I have fun reading about it and I have fun talking about it to you. And so, with that being said, I want to present it in a way that is just telling you what's going on, right? Nothing more, nothing less. Just kind of chit chatting with you here for a little while. And with that little while, I mean, keeping it somewhat brief, right? It's just kind of providing insight as to what's going on, kind of giving the facts of the land here. One week we talked about kind of the general basics of the gas prices, right? Because obviously gas prices has been something that we were all affected by. And then another episode's been the new bill that was just passed, right? The big new bill that the government passed in terms of more specifically the electric vehicle standpoint, right? Because electric vehicles have been always something that's really interested me. And so, being able to talk about that has been beneficial, I think, right? Because that bill that was passed provided some interesting takes on how the benefits worked of purchasing a new electric vehicle and then how they're going to be made, how many were going to be made, so on and so forth. And so another thing that's been of interest has been space, right? I know Tesla has been a part of that, and obviously the big space entity nowadays is also NASA. And so if you haven't heard already, I'll be talking about that today because a big news headline has been Artemis. Artemis 1, it's a huge rocket, one of the largest rockets ever to go up into space, essentially has been scrubbed, right? So it was supposed to launch not too long ago, and it was scrubbed a couple times because of a hydrogen leak. And so after months upon months upon months, literally a long time of building this huge rocket and a lot of money spent being in the whole construction mode and whole construction zone of this rocket, there was a lot of excitement around it, right? Which is good. I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of excitement going on regarding space again, and a lot of the momentum is shifting that way, which is cool. And so I know Tesla's been a part of that. Amazon's rocket company's also been a big part of that, and obviously NASA is in the thick of it as well. And so a second attempt at launching this rocket was pushed back after NASA realized there was a fuel leak going on within the tanking portion of the launch. And so it was the second time within 5 days that there were technical issues that kept the rocket from going up into orbit, right? Because the goal of this uh, mission was to at least orbit the moon. At the end of the day, they wanted to go somewhat close to the moon. So that way, another time around, they could actually land on the moon again, right? Because we obviously remember first man on the moon back way back in the day, back in 1969, right, with Neil Armstrong being the first one on the moon. And so since then, there basically hasn't been anybody, at least from the United States, that's been up there. And so we want to get back up and running again, right? Like we want to get up there. We want to see what's going on with the moon. And once we get up there, it'll lead to a lot of awesome, awesome studies. And now we're at the point where there's been a few, like I said, a few technical issues with the space aircraft, Artemis. And so obviously a big thing that's going on, like I said, two failed attempts at launch within 5 days. That potentially leads to the question of, was it worth the $93 billion cost to build the rocket along with everything that's going on within the program? So the big headline now is the Artemis moon launch. Americans weigh in on whether NASA program is worth the $93 billion. And so, obviously the question like that is going to come out of this whole scenario. And so, they're going to weigh in for hopefully a rescheduled launch, hopefully soon. you know, it's one of those things where especially if you were down in Florida, there were so many people that went down to Florida to watch this historic launch because it is a historical launch. And I mean, who wouldn't want to see one of the biggest space aircrafts going up to the moon? And, you know, even NASA had a press conference, um, just kind of talking about it. And they were just discussing, stuff that happened. And so, one of those key core messages to portray over to you is that just as a figure, which is actually pretty incredible, the Artemis aircraft is 32 stories tall. Another thing to mention is the crew capsule will carry 3 test dummies and fly around the moon and back over a 37-day flight test period. So, lastly, as kind of a background idea to mention is that, once this mission does go well, right? That's once it does. Hopefully it does again sooner rather than later, is that NASA does intend on bringing astronauts back to the moon, hopefully as early as 2025. And what's really cool about it is that one of those crew will be female, hopefully more, as obviously. And so part of the crew will be kind of a mix between males and females, which is awesome. And so, again, I want to reiterate the fact that, the plan for this first Artemis mission is that they're going to bring essentially 3 test dummies, fake people, just test dummies, right? Like kind of like you see in a store. And then by 2025, hopefully hopefully earlier than then, they'll bring a live crew up there to land on the moon itself. And so that's the goal. And so hopefully, and then in the upcoming days and weeks ahead, hopefully NASA, you know, gets on board, does what they have to do to get these leaks solved, secured, and then make it official to go up there. Because, like I said, the project already cost so much money anyway. So, what is it going to look like, and how do we create a successful project? So, that's the hope. That's the plan. Let's go NASA, and let's get back to the moon, everybody.